we go. And I believe we're recording.
I think so.
All right. All right. Well, hey guys, welcome to the show. We're back to talk about some more movies and some more cool things. My name is Tristan, and I am joined by my boy Dino across the pond in Germany. How you been, Dino?
I've been doing good. It's been a while since we recorded the last one.
Yeah.
It's not too long, but it feels like a lot of time.
It feels like it's been like years, pretty much.
Yeah.
But it's good to be back on.
Yeah,
it's good to be back on talking.
Yes.
Absolutely. So for today, we're going to be talking about a movie that we picked last week in our pilot test episode. I guess to be determined if you guys will be hearing that one. But we went ahead and we found out that the movie that we'll be doing this week from our generator is going to be The 400 Blows, which was one of my suggestions and is really just one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, it's a great movie, so I'm glad. Was this a first-time watch for you?
I'm going to get into that when we discuss it.
Okay, good. All right, we'll get into that later. But anyway, that's your movie for the week. But Dino, before we talk about this movie that we're going to talk about, what else did you see this week? Anything good?
Well, I can start. I didn't watch a lot, to be honest. I was kind of busy with studying for college and everything. So I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in the theater. I don't know. You probably haven't seen it, right?
I have not. How was it?
Have you heard the things?
I've heard some mixed reviews over here in the States.
A lot of mixed reviews. I personally enjoyed it. I had fun with it, but I do understand like some of the criticism because I had some of my own, especially like the third act, the ending, especially. I think could have been done a little bit different. But all in all, I think it's a fun movie. I think if you go into an Ant-Man movie, I know it's everything like setting up the new phase and everything, but I thought it was fun. I laughed a lot. It was a lot of action. It's like you can see like a lot of Star Wars inspiration, just like Star Wars, but like really small, like into the quantum verse. And as like I've read a lot of comic books, and as a child, I've always been fascinated with the quantum realm in the comics. So I was excited to see it done in live action. So I enjoyed it. It's not one of my favorite Marvel movies, but I think it's enjoyable. It's fun.
And were you a big? Is this the second Ant-Man movie? Is it the third? This is the third. Yeah. How would you rank these? Rank this one among the three movies that they put out
I think
already?
I would put the first one in first place. I like that one the most, especially because you can see a lot of because Edgar Wright started filming the first one. I think there was a lot of
really?
drama happening.
He was the original director?
He was the original, but I think he wasn't
I didn't know
really excited to connect it to the larger Marvel universe. I think he wanted to set it in his own little world. And I think that's where the drama happens, but I'm not sure.
I see.
But you can see a lot of like Edgar Wright in that movie. I feel
was Paul Rudd attached when Edgar Wright was directing?
I think so. I think they started shooting, but I'm not sure.
Oh wow, okay, that's cool. I had no idea.
That's when the drama happened, but I could be wrong here. That's just what I remember. But I don't know. I just like that one the most, and I think after that, that's Quantumania for me, and then the second Ant-Man and the Wasp, because I rewatched it with my girlfriend because she hasn't seen them. And I almost fell asleep during Ant-Man 2. So I don't know. It's
so Quantumania, not great, but better than the second one.
Definitely. I liked it. I had fun with it. So yeah.
Good. Well, what else did you watch?
I watched The Black Phone. I don't know if you've.
Oh, The Black Phone. I did see that. I watched that.
Have you seen it? Okay. By Scott Derrickson.
Did you like it?
I liked it a lot, especially the ending because the way everything came together, I found that like it was really like creative, and I haven't seen it done like that. At first, I thought it was just gonna be a little generic.
Yeah.
Just as it went on, and I liked it, and especially like the Super 8 title sequence.
Yeah, that was super cool.
Dream sequence, because I when I watched it, I knew we were gonna talk about it in the podcast.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought to myself, like, if you haven't seen it, I have to tell you to watch it
Yeah,
just because of
yeah.
those Super 8
Those
scenes.
are probably my favorite parts of that movie for sure.
Same, same.
Yeah,
Especially like the opening credits. That
yeah,
was so good, so good.
yeah.
So I liked it. And I just love Scott Derrickson. I think he's a
Mm.
super talented director, and I can't wait to see more of him.
And is he
Um,
the director of Sinister?
yes, that's
Okay,
him. He directed
okay.
Sinister, and he also did Doctor Strange 1.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, and he's like mostly horror. I think
okay.
that's what he does.
Cool. I'll have to take a look and see what else he's done.
I can't wait for his next one. Afterwards, I watched 3,000 Years of Longing.
Oh, I never saw that one.
Have you not seen it? Okay.
I haven't seen it.
I wanted to watch it in the theater when it came out,
Hmm.
but I don't know what happened. Like I didn't go, and I kind of regret it because it was really good.
Really?
I watched it, and I think you have to watch it. Maybe I'll put it on my list.
Okay, okay.
It's it's a great movie about just storytelling in
Uh-huh.
general, and just like all these mythical beings, and just how what stories do with people, and how it connects with us humans. And I thought it was a great movie, and Tilda Swinton is great in it.
Hmm.
And so I
She's
definitely recommend.
awesome. Awesome in
She's,
everything.
she's great. Um, so that one I really liked. And then I finally watched Minari.
Nari. Oh yeah.
Have you seen that one? The
No,
A24
that was on the
one?
watch list like all throughout 2021,
Yeah.
or was that 2020 or 2021?
2020.
2020. Okay, yeah. I remember it being on the watch list that whole time, and then I don't know if it ended up like getting a theater release around me, so I think I kind of just forgot about it.
Yeah. It
How
didn't
was it
get
though?
one.
Did you like it?
I liked it a
Everyone
lot.
seemed to love it.
It's great. Steven Yeun is fantastic in it.
Yeah, he's great.
Especially like the little kid. Let me look up his name because he deserves the credit.
Hmm.
Um, his name is Alan Kim.
Okay.
He plays the little son. He just steals the show. Him and the grandma,
Okay.
they're my favorite two characters, and just him especially. Like he's just such a joy every time he's on screen. He's just so adorable, and I like the story a lot.
And what exactly is the movie about? Is it like a character thing, a coming of age, or
So it's a first generation immigrant family from South
okay,
Korea, and
okay,
they were first in California, and then
okay,
they moved to I forgot what it was, like the countryside,
okay,
and they start to well he starts a farm basically.
okay,
So he starts doing that, and it's a really great just like family movie, and like an immigrant story.
okay.
And I just thought it was really great, especially from like coming from a family who is a first generation
Right.
immigrant. I just could relate to a lot of things, and I just really liked it. And it's very beautiful shot, like lots of green and lots
Absolutely.
of nature, and it was really great. I highly recommend watching.
I'll
Yeah.
definitely check that out because that definitely seems like something I can definitely relate to as well.
Mhm.
And I remember hearing a bunch of great things, so I'll definitely be checking that. Did you
Mhm.
stream that somewhere in particular?
I actually rented it, so I recently started going to the library
Uh-huh.
because my neighbors are they're renovating their apartment.
Uh-huh.
So there's just a lot of drilling and hammering, and I can't study at home. So I
Yeah.
decided let's just go to the library. I haven't been in ages, and I got a new library card, and I just went to their movie section.
Uh-huh.
I instantly fell in love. Like they had so many great movies and so many movies I wanted to see. So
Hmm.
I'm using that opportunity, and I saw Minari, and I wanted to check it out like ever since it came out, but never got around to it. So I rented it at my library and immediately watched it. And yeah,
Awesome. Well,
mm,
I'll definitely keep that on the list.
nice.
Let's go ahead.
Um,
And
mm,
let's see. I'll name just a couple that I got around to this week before we
mhm,
get into the actual movie. I watched a movie. Well, I did rewatch The Cabin in the Woods,
Mhm.
which
Okay.
I hadn't seen since I think maybe it came out like in theaters. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, I think I liked it a little bit less this time.
Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah,
remember not liking it. So.
yeah, I think I don't know that I ever really loved it, but I
Mhm.
remember just kind of being like, "Oh, this is like weird, but kind of cool." But
Mhm.
this time around, I don't know. I wasn't really into it. I think it's a really cool idea, but
Yeah.
um, just wasn't
I
for
like
me.
it.
And I don't even know why I clicked on it. I think I just saw it on HBO or something.
Mhm. I like the concept of it. That's
The
something I
concept
really
is
like.
super cool. I
Yeah.
think I think one of the things is that like they had all these other like little side things that you saw as like potential options, and I'm like,
Mhm.
almost all of these seem a lot cooler than these
Yeah.
zombies or whatever that you picked. Like this seems like
Definitely.
the lamest option of all the ones that you
Yeah.
could have done. Um, but in terms of movies that I did see that I did really enjoy, I fell into a bout of food poisoning last week, so I kind of just stayed in bed for one full night and threw on these two movies back to back that were really awesome and actually paired really well together. And
Mhm.
the first one was a movie called My Bodyguard from 1980. It
Yeah.
has what's his name, Matt Dillon
Mhm.
in it, and it's kind of. Do you remember the movie Drill Bit Taylor with Owen Wilson from like 10 or 15 years ago?
I do not know.
He in that movie he essentially gets hired. He's like a grown ass man,
Mhm.
and he's like an ex like military guy who's kind of homeless, and he gets hired by these high school kids who are getting bullied to like be their bodyguard. And
I've heard about that.
it's very fun. That was
Yeah.
like my favorite childhood movie, like for sure. I probably have seen that more than any other movie.
Mhm.
But I realized watching this, I'm like, oh, that's where they got the idea. Is clearly from My Bodyguard.
Mhm.
And Adam Baldwin plays the bodyguard who protects this kid from Matthew Dillon, who's like the high school bully. And it's funny. Then I remember I'm like, oh, there's a little cameo in Drill Bit Taylor when they're interviewing bodyguards, and it's Adam Baldwin wearing the exact same thing that he
No
wore
way.
in this movie. Yeah, and it was cool that it
Okay.
just kind of pieced together. I'm like, whoa. But this movie is super funny. The main kid, his name is Chris Makepeace,
No.
which I'm not too familiar with him. He was in that movie Meatballs with Bill Murray, but
Mhm.
beyond that, I don't really know him from anything. I think he's maybe more of like an assistant director now, like behind the
Yeah.
camera kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But he's really good. The movie's very funny. It actually kind of takes a really sad turn, but ends on a great note. It's a really great movie. I think you might really like it. But
I'll
that's called
definitely
My
check it out.
Bodyguard.
When did
Yeah,
it come out?
it came out in 1980.
1980. Okay.
So real young Matt Dillon.
Mhm.
Um, and then the movie that I watched right after, which is a movie that I think I heard paired well with My Bodyguard from someone, and that's a movie called 3 O'clock High, which also came out in the 80s. And this was remade as well with Ice Cube and I think Charlie Day, and I think it was called Fist Fight.
Okay. Fistfight
And
I've
I
heard of.
Yeah, Charlie Day is like a teacher and he accidentally like insults or slights or something Ice Cube, who's like a mean teacher or something. And
Mhm.
I think Ice Cube essentially is like, I'm gonna kick your ass at the end of the school day at 3 o'clock. And that's just it's this movie that they essentially
Okay.
remade.
Interesting.
Um yeah, only 3 o'clock high, it's about um like the kids in the high school as opposed to I guess their teachers and fist fight.
Mhm.
I don't know. I never saw it. But
Okay.
3 O'clock High is very funny. It's very, very, very 80s. Um, yeah, and it's essentially this guy who knows that it's like High Noon, that Western High Noon is
Mhm.
essentially what it's playing on, where it's like, hey, this is all gonna go down like at the end of the school day.
So
Everyone's
it's
gathered. He's do
preparing for everything, right?
exactly, and he's
Okay.
trying all these different things to get out of it. Um, and he has like his buddy there who's kind of like the reason he even got into the mess in the first place.
Mhm.
Um, but very funny. High recommend for anyone who likes 80s movies.
Sounds
And
fun. I
then
love 80s movies, so
absolutely.
check it out.
Um, and then just one real quick one that I just want to throw in is a movie called Remember My Name that came out in 78. It has Geraldine Chaplin, who is Charlie Chaplin's daughter. She's like, and Anthony Perkins from Psycho is in it as well. And this came out in the late 70s. And essentially, she there's this woman that you gather. She just got out of prison and she goes to this small town to like try to start a new life. But she starts like stalking this like guy who's married, that guy being Anthony Perkins. And you don't really understand why. As the movie progresses, some things start to get answered, but mostly there's just a lot of questions and not many things are answered. And I think I really appreciated that.
Mhm.
And it's like really moody, and it really goes to like some pretty like heavy places that I wasn't expecting it to go. And it's super funny, and Anthony Perkins is awesome. And I think everyone thinks I'm just like psycho, but that
Mhm.
dude is like, that dude is really good in almost everything I've seen, which
Mhm.
anytime I see him, I immediately think like, wow, I got to just binge everything this guy's in. Um, but I highly, highly recommend that movie. It was directed by a guy named Alan Rudolph. He was like a protege to Robert Altman, and Robert Altman, I think, actually produced this movie. So that was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
interesting.
Um, yeah, but highly recommend all of those movies.
I'll put them all
Um,
on the list.
good,
They
good.
sound
That's what
great.
I like. That's what I like to hear. Um, one little thing that I guess I want to talk about with you before we get into talking about the 400 blows. Are there
Mhm.
any specific movies that you're really excited to see this coming year, 2023?
Well, Creed just came out, I think today or tomorrow's coming out.
Yeah,
Creed 3.
yeah.
Um,
I've seen it starting to pop up on Letterboxd from some
yeah,
of the people I'm following. Yeah.
I'm really excited for that one because I just love the whole Creed and like Rocky franchise. I
Uh,
love Michael B. Jordan, so
Michael B. Jordan's awesome.
he just received his Hollywood Walk of Fame like
Oh,
an
did
hour
he?
ago or something. Yeah.
Oh, nice. It's funny. Right before I was just looking, like before you joined, I was looking on Instagram or something, and this video popped up of Michael B. Jordan. He's like walking the red carpet for something.
Hmm.
And have you seen this? There's like some lady interviewing him, and he recognizes her as like some girl like that went to high school with him who like used to like tease him or something.
I didn't
And
know.
so I'll send you a link. I didn't actually
Okay.
watch the video yet.
Hmm.
I didn't have the time, but I do have the link. I'll send it to you. I'm just gonna
Okay.
watch it after this, but I thought that was funny.
Nice. Yeah. I just love him. I think he's great. And have you seen the Creed movies or?
I have not seen either of the Creed. There's been two, correct?
Yes, this is the third one.
This is the third. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I've
Have you
not
seen
seen
the
either
Rocky
of the
movie?
others. Yes, I've seen the Rocky, well, the original Rocky, and
Mhm.
then one of the sequels, I think like a Rocky 4, but this is like as a
Okay.
child. Like I'm due for a rewatch of the
Okay.
franchises as a whole.
Yeah, maybe you can do like watch everything leading up to it, and
Yep.
I'm very excited for this one. Um, what else? I'm excited for Barbie.
Oh
I'm
yeah. Yeah,
very
I'm pretty
excited for
excited for
Barbie,
that.
especially with like your boy Ryan Gosling.
My boy. Yes, sir.
It's got to be the best movie.
Of all
Um,
time.
definitely, definitely. I'm excited for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Mm.
That's one I'm really excited. Have you seen the other Guardians movies?
I saw the first one when it came out, and
Mhm.
I remember actually like thinking at the time too, because I'm not really into like Marvel all
Yeah,
that much, but I remember seeing that one and be like, this one's actually pretty cool and actually kind of funny.
great. One of
And
my
it
favorite
was like
Marvel movies.
really badass too.
Yeah. What else is coming out in 2023? Let me just check because I know there are a couple more movies. Indiana Jones
Oh
5,
yeah, yeah,
Dial for Destiny.
that's your
Um,
guy.
that's my guy.
Hmm.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is like my favorite movie of all time, and I'm really excited for that one and just see how it concludes. If it concludes, if they just do like a time travel thing and cast a new lead for Indiana Jones,
Uh-huh.
um, I could see that happening. You've seen the Indiana Jones movies, right?
Of course, of
Okay.
course, Mr.
You're,
Jones.
you're excited for this one?
Honestly, not really, because I
Okay.
thought the Crystal Skull
Yeah.
was so bad that I was kind
Mhm.
of like, will I still see it? Probably. I'll still go see it, but I'm not like counting down the days. Like I'm sure,
Okay.
you're probably very excited.
I
Um,
trust James Mangold, so
that is true. That is true.
mhm.
There is James Mangold who is manning that movie. So it'll definitely give it a little bit of well, didn't Spielberg direct the Kingdom of the
He
Crystal
did.
whatever?
I
He
think
did?
so. I
I
think.
think, yeah. So who knows? But yes, I do have faith in Mangold, and I definitely will still check it out regardless.
because I
When does
feel
that come out?
that comes out, I think, in July,
In July.
June,
Okay.
June 30th.
June. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I just think like Harrison Ford, I don't think he would have come back if he
If it
wasn't
wasn't
convinced.
worth the while.
Exactly, because I feel like
Yeah.
he's like he wouldn't do it. I feel like so. I'm just very excited.
Hmm.
Um, what else? I'm excited for Dune Part Two.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I was just talking about that movie yesterday. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
very excited for it because I'm curious to see where he's kind of taken in, where where it's going to end. I mean, are they going to
Mhm.
keep going? Do you know? Are there plans for a third?
I think I think Denis Villeneuve is trying to do a trilogy, but
I
they're
see.
probably waiting to see how the second one does. Because I don't know. Have you read the Dune books?
No, no. My
Okay.
only previous any knowledge of Dune is through David Lynch and
Mm.
that whole project.
That movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think with how like when the first one ended, the first movie like where in the book, I think the
Hmm.
second movie is gonna cover like the second half of the first book, and then you have this
Okay.
second book, Dune Messiah, which can be like its own movie. I think it's enough for just one movie.
Okay.
And that's where you like end the story of this trilogy of Paul Atreides.
Okay.
So
So have you
yeah,
read the books?
I've read the books.
Okay.
I last week I bought the third one, Children of
Uh-huh.
Dune. So I'm gonna read that soon. But the first two I've read.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm very excited for that, and especially the people that they've added to the cast. I'm very excited to see Austin Butler
Hmm.
in Dune. That'll be crazy to kind of see him in that sort of sci-fi,
Yeah.
world.
And
Something we
Florence
haven't really
Pugh
seen him in.
also.
Florence Pugh, yeah, really,
It's a
really exciting to see
great
that they had.
cast in general.
Great cast, and I'm sure
Yeah.
there's plenty others that I'm not even aware
Yeah,
are
they added a
been
bunch
added
more.
to the second film. Yeah.
Mhm. And then I'm excited for Across the Spider-Verse. That's a
Oh yeah,
movie
yeah.
I'm very excited for, and I think that's probably it. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, I think Oppenheimer is a big one. I think a lot of people
Mm.
are really excited for. Another one with
Yep.
where the cast is kind of like the main
Stacked.
driving reason.
Hmm.
When I was watching TV, I think it was the Super Bowl, and the trailer I think came up,
Hmm.
and I remember we all just started busting out laughing. Like, is that Josh Peck in a Christopher Nolan movie?
Yeah,
And I looked it up. I'm like, yeah, Josh Peck is going to be an
he's
Oppenheimer.
in it.
That's so sick. I cannot
Yep,
wait. Very excited for that. Killian Murphy is awesome and everything, and Oppenheimer, like that's just an awesome like dude to make like a biopic on.
definitely.
So I'm excited for that. I'm also excited for the new Ari Aster movie, Beau is
Mhm.
Afraid with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
I think that comes out here in April. I could be wrong. I think it comes out in the
Hmm.
States in April. Um, I'm really excited for that. I remember it was supposed to be slated, I think, for last year. It's been pushed back, I think, maybe 2 years by now.
They also changed the
Um,
title, right? Because I
yeah, it was
remember it
going to
was called
be
like
Disappointment
Disappointed Boulevard.
Boulevard,
Yeah,
which I like that name a lot better. That name
me
is
too.
a lot
Me
better.
too. But I'm
Um,
excited. Very
I'm
curious.
excited either way. The trailer, did you get a chance to peep that trailer when it came
I
out?
did. Yeah.
It looks super trippy, super cool, and I think Ari Aster is just a really good director. Did you like Midsommar and Hereditary?
Loved it. I love Midsummer more than
Uh-huh.
Hereditary, but I also loved
Ooh,
Hereditary. So
hot take.
yeah.
Yeah, I so I'm super excited. It's been a long time. I guess Midsommar was um what 2019, I guess.
I think so, yeah. Or like
Yeah.
maybe even sooner, 18,
Okay. Wow, yeah.
something like that.
Something like that. So it's been quite a while, but I'm super excited, and Joaquin Phoenix obviously can really do no wrong.
Mm.
Um, another one that I'm really excited for is the new movie from Yorgos Lanthimos, who directed The Killing of a Sacred Deer. He directed The Lobster,
Mhm.
and The Favorite was his last film with Emma Stone, and I think that was another like 2018, 2019,
It's been a while.
quite a long time.
Yeah.
But it's this really interesting. It's based on a novel,
Mhm.
and it has an awesome cast. Have you heard about this movie at all?
I have not. What's the title?
It's called Poor Things, and it was it originally had a different title, or maybe he was also working on another film at the same
Mhm.
time.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it has a great cast. It has Emma Stone, Willem Dafoe, Mark Ruffalo, Margaret Qualley, Christopher Abbott, who I think is incredible. Um, Jared Carmichael, like there's just a bunch of, or Gerard Carmichael, just a bunch of awesome people in it, and it seems really cool. The little log line or the premises, and I think Emma Stone is who they're referencing, is
Mhm.
upon drowning herself to escape her abusive husband, who I believe the abusive husband is Willem Dafoe. A woman has her brain replaced with the brain of her unborn child, with the help of her father. Oh, I'm sorry. Willem Dafoe, I think, plays her father, and I think her husband is
Mhm.
Mark Ruffalo, I think.
Okay. Damn.
So it sounds
That
super weird, super
sounds
cool,
very interesting.
and I don't think we have a release date on that one yet. But I do know that that wrapping did finish. They did shoot that last year,
Okay.
um, or maybe even the year before. I think they actually started in 2021.
Mhm.
But very, very excited for that, and I'm a big fan of his. Have you seen The Lobster, Killing of a Sacred Deer, any of his other movies?
I've only seen The Lobster,
Okay,
but the other two are on my watch list. I need to get to them.
yeah.
Um,
Did you like The
but
Lobster?
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
But it's
awesome movie, and
been a
he's
while. It's been a while since
yeah,
I've seen it.
and he's got a real kind of singular and unique kind of take that you can really. It's one of those where you see it and it's like, yeah, you can tell who made it,
Yeah,
which I love to see
definitely.
from directors. But I guess those are some of the movies that I'm really excited to see. And then, one more that I want to mention because I'm curious to hear your thoughts
Hmm.
is what's the name of the guy, Danny McBride, and then what's the director who for these new Halloween movies? Oh God, David Gordon Green.
Yeah,
Have you seen that they're remaking The Exorcist now?
I have not. No,
It's coming out this year.
this year.
This
Okay.
year it's coming out, and it's a remake of The Exorcist, and I personally hold The Exorcist kind of in a higher regard than I do even the original Halloween.
Hmm.
Um, so to me, I'm honestly kind of scared to see what they do with it because I feel like they're gonna make a fucking mess of it, if I'm being honest.
Have they released anything like a trailer or?
I haven't seen anything except for like the little poster that's on Letterbox, but even then it's literally just like a black page with just a white font. Like it's not even
Yeah.
like no photos or anything that I've seen,
Okay.
but I don't really know anything about it. In terms of the cast, I know that Leslie Odom Jr. Is going to be in it. I think he was in the new Knives Out movie.
Mhm.
Um,
He's great.
yeah, as well as I think some musicals. I think he came from Broadway.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, he's going to be in it, and I think Ellen Burstyn is going to make a cameo appearance. Who obviously was the star of the original one from
Yeah.
'73. But I'm very nervous because I think we might have talked about the new Halloween movies. But
Hmm.
what were your thoughts on those kind of as a whole?
Well, and I remember we talked about it because I've only
Yeah.
seen the first one, like the original
Mm,
Halloween, and then the latest one.
latest. Yeah,
And we had a discussion about that because you
that's
also
right.
haven't seen the other ones,
Hmm.
and it was like really interesting just to see like the first one and just like you don't know what happened,
Yeah,
and then you're just thrown into this last one, and
exactly. Because
it's
that was the third one, right? Yeah, Halloween Ends was the third of like that new one that they did.
yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah.
think it's
Okay.
like is it like this the sixth one in total?
It in total is probably no. In total, it's probably like 10 or 11, maybe.
Okay,
Because I've
okay.
seen all of like the original franchise ones,
Hmm.
but then Rob's, which I think there's like eight of them. And then
Okay.
Rob Zombie made two of them, which I think I saw one as a kid at a sleepover years ago,
Mhm.
but I have a very fuzzy memory. And then, so 8, 10, and then these three. So wow, 13 Halloween movies.
Okay.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, it was
Um,
interesting.
it was. I
Mm.
think, and we both kind of shared a sentiment where I think we both liked it a lot more than the general public seemed to have liked it.
Definitely. It was,
Or at least people who saw the previous two movies,
yeah,
which
it
we
was
obviously did not
very
see.
weird,
Yeah, it
but
was
like
weird, but I liked the directions they took it. I can't lie.
definitely. I liked the scene with the tongue, with
Yeah, yeah,
that was a great scene.
that was awesome.
That
I'm
was great.
just, and that's the thing that I did not like, I didn't hate that movie,
Mhm.
but I don't want them to bring that kind of vibe to The Exorcist, I think, is
Mhm.
what I'm kind of feeling. But hey,
Understand.
I guess no way to know until we see it.
We're gonna
But
find out.
yeah, but Zoom is telling us we got to take a quick break here for just a minute,
Mhm.
but then once we get back, we'll go ahead and talk about the 400 blows. Sounds good?
Sounds amazing.
All right, we'll talk in a sec. All right, Dino. Well, we're back, and we are here to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, definitely in my top five ever, and that is the 400 Blows. That is from 1959, and that movie is by Francois Truffaut. It stars Jean-Pierre Léaud, who is still alive. He was just a young kid in this movie, but he's still out there in France kicking it, and it has just an awesome crew all around with in this movie. You have a great cinematographer, Henri Decay, who did a bunch of movies like Purple Noon, which I know you saw. He shot Les
Great film.
Samurai. He shot Le Cercle Rouge, a lot of like Melville's movies. And he also shot Elevator to the Gallows. Did you see that movie?
I have not. No.
I might have to add that one to list. Great movie.
Okay.
But has a great score, great cast as well. Um, but it's just a really, really cool movie. And I think it's maybe best remembered as kind of being sort of the film that kicked off the French New Wave properly. I think a lot of people mainly they'll direct their eye towards like Breathless or something by Godard. But this movie came out a year before that. Breathless, I believe, came out in 1960. And I've always thought that this movie was just miles and miles and miles better than anything Godard ever did. Um, because it has all of the creativity and experimentation, and there's a lot of stuff in there that you're like, oh wow, he kind of created a template for like jump cuts and
Yep.
stuff that we use every day now. Um, but Truffaut finds a way to do all this with heart and like emotion, as opposed to Godard, where you will never shed a tear watching his movie. You will never feel really any kind of emotion apart from "Whoa, that's cool." Or at least for me personally,
I
I
haven't
don't want to
seen
get
a Godard
bombarded.
film yet.
Okay,
I know I
one of
have to, but
maybe one of these days we'll put one on and
Mhm.
we'll have to see what you think. But
For sure.
anyway, for those who don't know, just I guess briefly before I get to the movie, the French New Wave was is really one of the most influential kind of periods I think for films, and especially for the filmmakers that maybe are some of our listeners' favorites or whatever, like Martin Scorsese or Brian De Palma or Francis Ford Coppola, or even more modern people like Noah Baumbach or Paul Thomas Anderson. A lot of these people you can tell are very influenced by the French New Wave, and there's just that real like energetic kind of editing and way of shooting a movie, and a lot of doing it without permits, no money. You're just on the streets, you're filming. You can tell they're just in the back of a car, or Truffaut's getting pushed in a shopping cart while he has the camera. A lot of stuff like that. And a lot of that really adds to, I think, a lot of the inspiration when you see it. It's kind of like, wow, they kind of just went out and did it. And for anyone who's interested in making it, it's like, wow, I could,
Definitely.
maybe I can't make something as good, but I could at least go out and do that. Um, in terms of having resources.
Mhm.
Um, but like I said, this movie is by Francois Truffaut. People might know him from the famous book and interview he did with Hitchcock, the Truffaut and Hitchcock, which is one of the best interviews ever. Hitchcock goes through all his movies with him, and they talk technique and all that. It's very cool. But I guess I'll give a quick rundown of what this movie was. And again, this will be a spoiler warning for anyone listening. Um, we're going to talk about this movie. I don't get people who listen to podcasts about a movie and haven't seen it anyway.
Full
But
spoilers, so
yeah,
definitely
full
watch it
spoilers.
and
Exactly. Exactly. So I guess the plot for the 400 Blows, just to give a quick rundown, it's stars Jean-Pierre Léaud, is a young boy named Antoine Douanel. He's about 12 years old or so, and he's growing up in Paris, and he seems to be pretty misunderstood by his parents, his teachers, um, where he kind of gets into a bunch of trouble at school and at home for stealing, for just kind of being an all around little, just being a 12-year-old boy, um, and he gets into a lot of trouble, and he to the point where he plays hooky with his buddy Rennie, who is actually based on the other writer on this movie, who was I guess a very good friend of Marcel Musi, a very good friend of Truffaut's as a child, and I guess
I
that's
don't
who that
know.
character is based on. But anyway, he runs away. He quits school after his teachers accuse him of plagiarizing Balzac, which he does very blatantly, which was a super funny scene. Um, and he gets in a lot of trouble when he plays hooky with his buddy. And when he goes back to school, he claims that he was missing the day before because his mom died, and that kind of set his parents off into really kind of making
Not
it
a
a
great
final
excuse.
straw. Exactly. But after that, he also tries to steal a typewriter from his dad's office, and he doesn't get caught when he steals it, but when he decides to return it, he gets caught, which is sort of the unfortunateness of this movie. That many of the things that he gets in trouble doing, some are his decisions, but sometimes really are not his fault at all.
Mhm.
Which I guess is kind of how it feels a lot when you're a kid. You feel like you get in trouble a lot of times, like I didn't even do anything. Um, but anyway, he gets sent to jail after returning the typewriter, and he's in this cell with just these like thieves and these prostitutes, and he does this interview with a judge where they determine if he should be displaced into like a boarding school, kind of like a reform school sort of thing, and they determine that he is, um, which is something that his parents kind of wanted. It seems like he's always kind of in the way. They're always like, all right, well, what do we have to do with this kid? We want to go out for the summer. What do we do with Antoine? It seems like he's kind of always in the way. Um, and he has this really cool interview with like this psychologist where she kind of asks him all these questions, and he gives a lot of background into his upbringing, why he steals, why he lies, um, and anyway, he ends up getting sent to this boarding school, and while he's there, he finds an opportunity to escape under a fence, where he runs down, he runs and runs and runs until he finally finds the ocean, which he mentions earlier in the film that he's never seen the ocean, he's never been to the beach, and it's something he's always wanted to see. And he finally gets there, and he runs to the water. And once his feet are finally in the water, he looks right into the camera, and he has the freeze frame, and the end is right over his face. And that is the end of the 400 blows. Dino, what were your thoughts on this movie?
I loved it. I
Awesome.
loved it a lot. So you asked me before if it's the first time I've seen it.
Hmm.
And so the funny thing is, in Germany we have like these channels, and they oftentimes just play old movies, especially on Sundays.
Okay.
Just like these old French or German or Italian movies, a lot of classics. And I remember, like, as I watched it, I remember seeing it as a kid, or like
Uh-huh.
seeing certain scenes, but I've never seen it like actually like the full thing,
Like
start
front
to
to back.
finish.
Yeah.
It was the first time, and I actually watched it like 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I rewatched it earlier this morning as
Yeah,
well.
I wanted like to have it fresh in my mind,
Same, same.
um, and it was so great. Like you can just see a lot of things that came from it, like a lot of things that were influenced by it, and just like the creativity and just how beautiful everything is, like from the music, the cinematography, the story, the actors. Like it's an amazing film, and I definitely can see why it's one of your favorite movies.
Yeah,
And I think it's one of the best, maybe even the best coming of age movie.
I agree.
And I love coming of age movies. They're like one of my favorite genres. So I'm very thankful that you recommended this
Heck
movie and
yeah.
that I got to watch it. Like it's amazing. It's perfect.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And those kids, it's just all those kids are so good too. And they're
Mhm.
all such great actors, and none of them were actors or had ever really acted prior. And so it's crazy to just see these kids so natural And I think Truffaut does a good job of there's a ton of moments, and we'll get into it as we talk about this movie a little more, where they're just going out and just filming on the streets, like I said earlier. Like there's that one scene where they go to like the park and they're watching like that puppet show of Little Red Riding Hood. That's a thing that I guess happens in Paris on the weekend, and that was just a show that was happening, and they set up a camera in the back and we're just filming different kids, and you see them reacting. And then I mean, there's some cute kids in there. There's that one kid like at the end where he like rests his head like on that girl's shoulder, and it's just such a like a perfect moment. The fact that that was just something that happened and wasn't
so
like
genuine,
a very genuine moment that wasn't scripted, it wasn't directed to do it. It's just, you know,
real. It's real.
it's real. And that's what makes that movie, I think, a lot more effective. And I don't know if you noticed, but did you notice how many people you catch looking like at the camera and looking at the actors throughout the whole thing?
I did. Especially there was like one scene where like grandma just walks by
Yeah.
and she gives like this really like side eye, like what's going on? I did notice it. I did.
It's cool and funny at the same time to see that, because it's just something you don't see ever in movies, but
Yeah.
it kind of makes it feel almost like documentary like, doesn't it?
It just I don't know, like gives it that just feeling of realness. Like you can just tell they just went to a street, like you said, and they just shot things. It wasn't like prepared, like they didn't just block off streets to film it. It's just like real Paris, real people.
Yeah, a true independent kind of method of making movies. And I think beyond just like the style, I think the act of making movies in the French New Wave is a big influence on the guys that I mentioned earlier. Because if you look at like early Scorsese or any other independent kind of directors at that time, or De Palma, or even like maybe a young Spielberg kind of had some backing since the beginning a little bit, but some of these other guys were just like mean streets. There, you could tell a lot of these they just shot on the streets. Like Scorsese was just out there in New York filming, and a lot of those people were doing that at that time. So, and it's really cool to see that. But yeah, obviously you said this is a coming of age, and it's I agree, probably my favorite, if not even just the favorite. I think it's objectively maybe the best coming of age movie ever made. And it's very much an autobiography of the director Truffaut's real life. In fact, that interview sequence with the psychologist, like towards the end of the movie with Antoine, I believe they inserted her voice afterwards, but I believe it's actually Truffaut who's actually speaking. And it was like a test reel that they did. And if you go on Criterion Channel, or if anyone listening has access, there's a ton, or you have the Criterion of this film. There's a ton of like additional features where they showed the original just test reel, and it's essentially the same thing that's used in the movie, and it's Truffaut interviewing him. But in the film, a lot of the things that he's saying in that interview are things that actually happened to Truffaut, that his mom did want to abort him, but his grandma essentially saved him, or that it wasn't actually his real dad, that the dad that was there, or that he felt the mom didn't, whatever. And that's when you kind of think of that and you look at it through the lens of like, wow, this is really like this guy's kind of story. It makes it a lot more emotional and a lot more depressing too at the same time.
Just gives like the movie like just a lot more heart.
Yeah.
You can just see like how much of himself he put in there. And every time I hear something like that or just feel it, I think in a lot of movies you just feel it.
Yep.
It just makes movies so much better, and it just like reminds us why we fell in love with movies in the first place.
Exactly.
Just the emotional depth of it.
Yeah. And the fact that he's able to balance that like so easily with so much comedy in it as well. Like there's so many moments that are like laugh out loud funny in the movie. Like especially the one kid early on that gets me every time is when Antoine, he gets sent out because he was writing something on the wall when he was like in timeout or whatever. And he gets sent out to go like get like a brush or water or something to like clean it off. And the camera pans over to this kid who's trying to finish his test, but he keeps spilling ink all over himself and on the paper, so he keeps like ripping it out until there's no more
keeps
paper.
Looking back like, what's that noise? And he just It's great.
And then there's just no more paper left. And then when there is no more paper left, the camera just pans over and here comes Antoine back in. And that's just a really creative and funny way to do that, as opposed to maybe some others would just cut immediately to when he comes
Yep.
back in. But here Truffaut found an opportunity to be like, oh, here's something kind of cool and funny and interesting. And I'm sure it was probably something he did as a kid, or he saw a lot as a kid,
Mhm.
or a lot of kids did.
Yep.
But I always really loved that. A lot of the scenes with those kids were really funny. Was there anything in particular that you thought was particularly maybe funny in this movie?
But there were a lot of great scenes. The one you mentioned was probably my favorite
Yeah,
because it just
absolutely.
kept going on
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a minute, and it was so funny.
Every time
Um,
you think that he's finally got it, the ink just gets worse and worse. Yeah,
and then like his whole book is like gone, like all the
yeah,
pages are gone. It's
yeah.
just like looking at it like, oh, that was really great. Um, Another scene I liked when he gets there and he has to clean the wall where he
Uh
drew
huh.
on,
Uh huh.
and then he does something to the teacher before he gets there, like he just puts
Yeah,
like
the bunny ears.
exactly, and then the teacher's like, who did that? And he just points out that one kid, like, I
Right.
know you did something. He's like,
Yeah.
I didn't do anything.
And
And then the whole class, like as soon as the teacher turns around, the whole class starts doing the
yeah.
thing. Like they stand up and just dance and stuff.
Yeah, I
And
love
then
the one kid in the back who's doing like this
yeah,
thing
the
too, you
kissing
know?
one.
Loved it. Yeah.
That's a great one. And then they do it like two times.
Yeah.
The teacher like points out that one kid again, like, I know you did something. He's like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That was another very great scene, but it's just filled with like all these great moments.
Yeah.
It's just
And
like, mhm,
from the kids and even the parents had some pretty funny moments. I think the dad in particular had a few funny moments.
mhm,
But those kids are just a right, like when Rennie, his buddy, is in the English class and he's trying to pronounce father and he keeps saying father, and the
mhm.
teacher's like, no, father. He's like, well, some people just can't say that.
Yeah,
And I just always think that that's such a funny scene.
yeah.
And really love that character of his buddy Rennie. What did you
Mhm.
think of him?
I didn't know he was based on the writer, like an all-time friend of his. I didn't know
I
that.
believe so. I could be wrong, but I believe that that's who it was based on.
Mhm. I liked it. I liked their friendship
Hmm.
because it just reminded me of like, I think what really like what's special about this movie, like we can all relate to it
Yeah.
because there's things that happen to all of us, like especially the school stuff. Like
Hmm.
you just know, like if it hasn't happened to you, you know people that it has happened
It's
to.
yeah.
And that's what I liked about it. And their friendship, it was just something very wholesome because they were there for each other. Like they went to everything together. And even when he ran away from home, like he gave him his room to sleep in. Like he
Hmm.
hid him from his parents and gave him the written excuse for the teacher, so he
Yeah.
can just copy it and things like that. And in the end, where he waits for his mom to come and his friend tries to get in and visit him. Like I just liked that a lot. Like their friendship, it just felt very real.
I think the best word choice you made is that it's the definition of a wholesome friendship.
Yep. Yep.
And that scene where he's waiting and you see Rennie's not only there, but he's the first one off. He's literally sprinting to the door. Like
Mhm.
that scene destroys me every time. I literally cry every single time I see that when he can't get in and he puts his hands
Mhm.
up and then Antoine is just destroyed. And it's I think that might be one of my favorite friendships in like film history. Like of all the movies I've seen, I think it would definitely make like a top 5 or 10 list for me if I'm like the best movie friendships. Like you said, they're just people who like you could tell they're there for each other no matter what. And even though sometimes Rennie's sort of egging him on, but at the same time Antoine's sort of egging him on too.
Yep.
Um, but they have a great friendship, and I love that one scene you had mentioned it when he kind of brings him to stay like hide out in his room, and then Rennie's dad goes to like the club or the bar or whatever. So they just like play backgammon and drink a bottle of wine and smoke cigars in the room.
Cigars, yeah.
And there's a really like sweet moment at the end of that, which I don't think I picked up on until maybe like a second or third viewing of this movie,
Hmm.
But at the end of that, when the dad is like looking around and he's talking, it seems as if he's talking about the horse, but you
Yeah,
kind of get that he might be talking about Antoine because he looks and sees his feet
he sees
first,
it. Yeah.
and then he goes back to talking about the horse, and he's like, "This thing's worth 1 in a million. I'll only get rid of it if I'm forced to." And it's kind
Mm.
of like a sweet thing that maybe Truffaut remembers his friend's dad, like maybe was more of a father figure than his own, and was like maybe saw some promise in him as a kid when his own
Mm.
parents didn't, and was like, you could kind of see it as him being like, Antoine is 1 in a million, and obviously I won't kick him out of this house literally unless they force me to. So after seeing them, like, that's a really sweet kind of thing, and I could just be making that up, but that's kind of the way that I see that, and I think that that's a really nice moment, especially since you don't really get to spend too much time with that dad either, but you get that
Mhm.
maybe Truffaut had a soft spot or at least a fond memory of a friend's dad from childhood.
Could be because I also noticed like he saw his feet, he looked at
Hmm.
them, but I just didn't really think about it that much.
Yeah,
But when you said it, like I think there's more to it.
yeah,
I
and
think I would have then.
yeah, and that's why I was just like, and again, it was like something on like a second or like a multiple viewing where
Mhm.
this is one of those movies too where it's like any this is with any great movie, but that's the test. If you watch it a second time and it gets better, that's how you
Mhm.
know it's a great movie. Like if you watch it a second time and I think it gets worse or it's not as good, then I don't think the movie's probably as great as maybe you thought it was. But this is one of those movies where every time you see it, there's just so much in there, which it's weird to think that there's so much packed into something that on its face is so simple, you know?
Yeah, very
Because
simple
this,
story.
mm-hmm,
It's just like this kid like doing things, and the camera just follows him through these moments, and that's the type of movies I love a lot.
mm-hmm.
Just love them, and it was great. But I'm curious to hear like you've seen it a bunch of times, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Today might have
Um,
been like the ninth or tenth, maybe.
okay. I'm very curious to hear like the first time you watched it.
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? How did you find that movie, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I probably I maybe if I had to guess was probably like 22 or so. So this was maybe like 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, where I was in school and I remember I was just like getting in. I was always watching a bunch of movies. I was watching every single day. I was doing that more than I was doing actual, work for college.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember discovering the French New Wave because I was reading about Roger Corman, who is a big reason for the people that I named earlier for having careers: Scorsese,
Hmm.
not De Palma, but Coppola, and then actors like Jack Nicholson, Bruce Dern, Peter Fonda. They all got their start with Roger Corman doing these
Hmm.
independent, low budget movies in like the 50s and 60s. And I was reading this book that mentioned Roger Corman in the same breath that they mentioned like the French New Wave, saying that all these 70s directors, the Spielberg, De Palma, Scorsese, all these that I mentioned, Altman, they were all kind of a mix of like the exploitation, low budget of Corman and the art house of French New Wave.
Hmm.
So I was like, I think I'm going to check out the French New Wave. And I looked up what movies and I saw Breathless and then I saw the 400 Blows. And I knew I recognized the photo because before Criterion Channel back in the day, there was a streaming service called Filmstruck, and they had a little Criterion section. And I remember the photo they used was the photo of Antoine when he's in the back of that paddy wagon. He has that tear coming down his eye
Hmm.
when he's getting taken away by the police. And I
Yeah.
always attributed that photo to Criterion. And I'm like, I knew that that was like going to be a good or special thing, but I wasn't really that familiar with those types of movies. Um, but then I was like, oh, I got to watch this one first because I've seen this photo forever, and it was like immediately when I watched it, I was like, this is like the greatest thing I have ever seen. Um, and I fell in love with it immediately. Like there was no warming up to it which there are plenty of movies that I do love that are maybe in my top 10 that I didn't really like the first time.
Hmm.
But this is one that I loved immediately and I've only loved more and more every time. And um, yeah, so only just saw it, I think probably, if I had to guess, maybe in the last 5 years, maybe even longer. I might have been younger, um, but around then, yeah. And I've been singing its praises ever since.
That's awesome to hear. And I'm glad it's the first movie for us.
Yeah, I think that was a good way for that kind of random number generator to work out.
Definitely,
The
definitely.
universe definitely helped us out there. What did you think of the name of the movie, The 400 Blows? Did that confuse you at all? Did you like the name? Did you think it was
It
kind of random?
it confused me, and I actually looked it up because I was like,
Yeah,
"What's this title?"
yeah.
And that's funny that you mentioned it because I wanted to tell you because the German title is different.
Oh,
So
what's the
they
German title?
translated it, and it's the title is "They Kissed and They Punched Him."
Oh,
Th-
that's
That's
a
a
that's a dope name.
that's a really cool title, and I liked it, and I was like, okay. So I wanted to tell you about it, and I looked up the like what for the 400 blows means, and
Uh,
maybe you want to explain it to the audience.
yeah.
If you wanna-
Well, I think that there's a few variations of what they believe it or what it's supposed to be. So I want to hear you as well. But
Mhm.
I think it's the 400 blows is kind of like a saying, like in France, that means like to raise hell or something like
Yep,
that.
yep,
Um, and when the people who were pushing it in the States, at least, or at least wherever it got its English title from, they just directly translated it. But I'm trying to think if there's like a phrase in like the US where um okay, I actually heard this in like a YouTube interview once. So I'm going to give credit to whoever it was. I don't remember, but I didn't come up with this myself. But someone compared it to like saying, like in the US, we have a phrase, which I'm sure you've heard, a saying like it's raining cats and dogs, which means it's like raining a lot, like it's like
yep,
pouring out. But if you just translated that directly, maybe to German or to French, people would be like, what? This
yep.
movie's the cats and dogs are raining? Like it might be somewhere it's like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
Different language here.
Yeah. So I believe that that's what is that what you got as well? It means like to raise hell or something like that.
To raise hell, I think like it means like to play 500, to play 400 pranks, like just to
Oh, I see.
something like that, and they just translated it like directly, and the phrase just got lost, the meaning of it.
Yeah, because it does, but it's a cool sounding name. I guess it at least adds a little
Definitely.
ambiguity too, because it's like, what is a 400 blow? What does that mean?
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know? I really like that German title. What is it again? They kissed and then they
they
punched
kissed
him.
and they punched him,
That's
or
a
like they
great
beat him, something like that.
that's a great a great title. I had no idea. I'm
I
curious
think
to know
because
what
of
some
the
of the other ones
relationship
are.
with the mother, because
Oh,
it's
that's
like very like sometimes there's love when there's something for her, but it's also very not very abusive in the way of beating, but like just how can I say it, like just mean, not
yeah. No,
very
just
cold
not
hearted.
really loving,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
Kind of feeling like they it's sort of more of a chore for them to take care of their son than it
yeah,
is a joy, like, most other people tend to think, taking care of
yeah.
their kid is a joy. Um but yeah, now I'm curious. I'm probably gonna go on a rabbit hole now. I was just trying to look but couldn't find anything. I'm curious to know what maybe the 400 blows in Japan or
Mhm.
in Italy or what or however they might have translated it, because it's interesting that that title and how we even got to that.
If you
Um
find something interesting, definitely write it down, and maybe we can talk about it in the next episode
Next week.
if there's
Absolutely. I will definitely
anything interesting.
find something in there good. And then do you have a favorite? I know we kind of asked like what you thought was funniest, but did you have any scene or any moment in there that you're like, this just really hit me or just really shocked
Mhm.
you or thought was awesome?
So actually, I made some notes while
Uh-huh.
watching it, and one scene I really loved, and you already mentioned it, the scene in the police car,
Yeah.
which is like standing there and you just see like the tear coming from
Uh-huh.
his eye and just him looking out. That scene was very powerful.
Oh yeah.
I liked that a lot. Another scene was when he has to write this paper like as a punishment from his teacher,
Mhm.
and he wants to write it, but then his parents come home and they're like, "Don't do it on like we're trying to eat dinner. Don't do it now," and he forgets about it.
Yeah.
And the next day he's just like in the bathroom and he's just cleaning the window from
Uh-huh.
the condensation, and you just hear the teacher saying that phrase
Yeah.
about him like making the world dirty, and just him it hits him, and just his look was just like pure. He's just terrified
Yeah,
that he forgot about it, and that was so relatable to me because
definitely.
it happened a lot in school, where I just forgot to do homework or whatever, and
Hmm.
then just remembering it, like the fear, and you're just like, fuck, like how am I supposed to go to school? That scene was great.
Yeah, those are
Yeah.
some great moments in that movie. And I kind of forgotten about that second one that you had mentioned at first too. I'm glad you mentioned that. Um, one scene that I really liked in this movie, well, I like many scenes, but one that I think is really interesting and creative and funny that we didn't mention is the scene where it's like the gym class at his school and they're going for the jog around the city and the
Mhm.
camera is like on a rooftop, you can tell, and is
Mhm.
shooting down, and over the course of the run you see like slowly a bunch of kids are running out of the line and they're like ditching the class, they're like running into an alley, they're running into a store, into a restaurant, until
Mhm.
at the end it's literally just like the gym teacher running with like one or two kids behind him when it
Mhm.
started off with like 30. I've always really loved that. um and then one other thing that I think is a really cool thing, and because Truffaut, I mentioned the Truffaut and Hitchcock book, and it's also an interview I think on YouTube. But the book I'm more familiar with um, is that he's a huge fan of Hitchcock, and Truffaut was a film critic before he was a director, and
Mhm.
always was like in France was like really vouching and like promoting the heck out of Hitchcock, and really saw him as kind of like the all-time great director ever. And there's a great moment where you can kind of see his Hitchcock fandom come out, and that's the scene where Antoine is returning the typewriter, where he creates this like Hitchcock suspense when
Yeah.
he goes up. You pan by the elevator for a quick second, and you see the guy come up, and then you keep
Mhm.
panning to Antoine. So now it's like, oh shoot, no, like you got to get out of there, and you have the suspense, and it's pretty short. It's only maybe 10 or
Mhm.
15 seconds that it's drawn out for, but it's one of those where I see him like this is like his little Hitchcock suspense moment, and
Definitely.
it's a cool little thing that stands out from the movie too, which obviously is not like a very suspenseful movie, but the fact that he could implement that shows that I think Truffaut obviously was a very well-rounded uh, director, and I think you could see that through all his other movies, which highly recommend all of his movies.
Mhm.
Um, but one last thing that I do want to mention before we kind of wrap up on the 400 blows is that ending shot. I really love that ending sequence. I think a lot of movies you can kind of see maybe we're cribbing from that a little bit. Like
Mhm.
this essentially started that final freeze frame shot that you see in any movie. This was kind of the first one that did that. Um, but also, and tell me because I know that you've seen this movie and I know that you're a fan. The ending kind of reminds me of the ending of The Graduate, in that Antoine looks at the camera and it's kind of like a okay, well, what now sort of moment.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing when Dustin Hoffman and Catherine Ross are like in the back of that bus, and after the excitement wears down, they both kind of sit there like, "What did we just do? Like,
Yeah.
what now? What are we supposed to do?" And it
Like
wasn't
there's
until
no
like
going
this
back.
exactly. It wasn't even until this viewing today where I'm like, "Oh," like it clicked to me. I'm like, "I wonder this." Mike Nichols probably saw that and was like, "Oh yeah," because it's kind of the same sort of sentiment, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
It's a great scene.
Um,
I'm glad you mentioned it because I also wrote it down.
yeah,
It's just like it's the first time I've seen it, but it's also already so iconic
yep,
because you can just see like what it inspired, and I just
oh
love
yeah.
like just a freeze frame and you just zoom in into his face, and it's just like the end, like so
And
great.
and the fact that it's just such a simple idea, it's like, how did no
Mhm.
one think about that before?
Yeah.
For that to be like the first time that ever happened. Um, but yeah, any other final thoughts or anything else that kind of stood out for you in this movie that you wanted to mention?
There's one more thing I wrote down, and it's the opening.
Hmm.
Opening with you just go through the streets of
Of
Paris.
Paris, yeah.
You always see the Eiffel Tower like static in
Hmm.
the background. And I love that because you go through all these different streets, like all these different angles, but there's always the Eiffel Tower in the background.
Yeah,
I think that was very creative, and I like that a lot.
I love that too. I'm glad that you mentioned that, and it's such
Mhm.
a great way to open the film too. You can literally feel Truffaut, like, or Henri or whoever was actually on the camera. It's almost like you can feel them operating the camera when you watch it, like a home movie. And the fact that you just always see the Eiffel Tower there sort of gleaming, it's, that there's all these other personal stories going on around this huge spectacle of the world that people travel to. It's really cool. Well, I guess final thoughts on this movie, or final things, is that if you have seen this movie and you do like it, and you like the character of Antoine Doinel, there are 4 other movies with him playing that character that Truffaut did make. The first one was a short that he did maybe 3 years after this, called Antoine and Colette. It's like 20 minutes long. Highly recommend. It is very funny, very cool, and it's Antoine a little bit older. And Rennie is in it as well, a little bit older, and it's cool to see them sort of just in their like dating life in like their late teens.
I have to check that out. I
I'll
didn't even
send
know
you.
it existed.
Oh yeah, I think it's on YouTube. It might be on YouTube. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But it might be on YouTube, like, for free to watch. But again, if anyone has access to Criterion, and I can give you my login if you'll be able to get on, they have all that on there.
Okay.
And then they did 2 other movies called oh shoot, what was it called? There's Antoine and Colette, there's Love on the Run, there's one called Bed and Board, and then Stolen Kisses. I don't think I did those in the correct order. I think Stolen Kisses was the next one, and then Bed and Board, and then I think Love on the Run is this last one. But this goes, I mean, from 1959, from the 400 Blows, all the way to, I think, Love on the Run is like 70 something, like mid 1970s. So it's, you really, oh wow, 1979, just checked. So 20 years, you see 20 years of this kid growing up. And I think that's something like, I don't remember Love on the Run as well. Antoine and Colette I've seen many, many, many times. Maybe as many times as I've seen the 400 Blows. The other 3 I've only seen once each, like years ago when I first saw this one. But I don't remember which one I liked the most when I saw them. They kind of blend together in my head. I think I'm definitely due for some rewatches on those though.
Okay.
But yeah, if anyone is interested, there are plenty of other movies with this character. But Antoine and Colette, I definitely recommend the most. And then for anyone who's interested in seeing some movies that are similar like this, or might have been influenced by this movie, I just wanted to give some suggestions. I think if you're interested in more movies by Truffaut as well, definitely check out the movie he did after this called Shoot the Piano Player. Actually, the little kid who gets the ink all over himself in that scene, he actually plays a small role in that movie as well. So it's really awesome to see, and he kind of talks more. He's very funny in that movie. But that's like a cool film noir. And then I definitely recommend Francis Ha by Noah Baumbach. Definitely check that out. That one, for every time I see the way that it was shot, the soundtrack, I'm like, this is so Truffaut. This is so 400 Blows. I love it. And then one other suggestion, if you like this, there's a movie from 1953 called Little Fugitive, which I've always felt was kind of like the Coney Island, New York version of this, where you follow this young kid around where, because of a prank by his older brother, he thinks he actually killed his older brother when it was just a prank. So he runs away from home to Coney Island. And it reminds me a lot of this movie, and it's very funny and very cool. But just wanted to suggest those to anyone listening as well, or to pair up with this movie or to check out. But it looks like Zoom is telling us to chill out for 1 more minute. So we'll take another quick break, and then we'll come up and wrap up and pick Dino's next movie.
I'm excited.
Awesome. All right. See you in a sec. All right. So we're back. Thanks again for listening to our discussion. If you have made it this far, seems we both really loved the 400 Blows. And I hope, you guys listening, you also enjoy that movie a lot. Like I said, definitely one of my favorites. And I'm super excited that I got my buddy Dino to be able to see it as well.
Again, I'm so thankful you recommend it, because it's such a great movie, and I hope everyone who watched it liked it just as much as you did. So
definitely. And if you don't, you need to get your head checked.
Definitely.
So next week's movie, for those of you who are just tuning in now or don't know kind of how we picked the movies, I picked the 400 Blows for this one. Dino and myself just did a coin toss prior to recording this one. We did it last week to figure out who would pick first, but we each came with a list of about 20 movies that we just love personally, that we wanted to introduce to the other person or rewatch with the other person. And now it is Dino's turn to go ahead and pick from his list. We're going to go ahead and do a random number generator and see what we got. You ready, Dino? Ready for me to spin the
Very
wheel on this
excited.
thing?
I
All
can't
right,
wait to see.
I am
this
excited. All
movie.
right, let's see. We got 1 to 20. Let's see what we got. And Dino, what is number 16 on your list?
16 is actually Hacksaw Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge.
Have you seen it?
Ooh, I have never seen it. Is this Andrew Garfield in the Mel Gibson
Yes.
movie? Yeah, okay.
Mel Gibson, Andrew Garfield, 2016. I'm very excited because you haven't seen it.
Oh, hell yeah. My uncle loves this movie. He's mentioned it to me many times. And I'm always just like, oh, I haven't seen it.
It's one of my favorite movies. The protagonist, it's based on a real story.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard of it.
I'm somewhat familiar, and I've seen that one scene of Andrew Garfield where I think he's talking to someone or being interviewed by someone, and he's kind of laying out his morals and principles and whatever kind of there. And it's really a powerful thing. So I'm excited to see it within the context of the movie itself.
On a real story of Desmond Doss, and he's
Okay.
actually like my personal hero, like real life hero, and just someone I look up to. And his story, just the first time I watched it, I just instantly fell in love with it. And I could relate to the character a lot. So I'm super excited, especially because you said you haven't seen it. It's like, it's perfect.
I'm super excited too. Does Mel Gibson make appearance in front of the camera at all during this movie, or just?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not that I remember.
Okay.
Maybe he has a little cameo somewhere in the background, but I don't think he plays like he definitely doesn't play like a major character.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the cast now. I see that Vince Vaughn is in this as well. That's exciting. I love me some Vince Vaughn, especially Vince Vaughn doing serious stuff. I think is very underrated.
Well, it's a great movie. I'm so excited to rewatch it.
I'm very excited. I'm going to go ahead and let's take a look and see, I guess, at least for those who are in the States, you can go ahead. You could rent Hacksaw Ridge if you want to watch it before our next episode. So that way you don't have to skip out on the spoiler section, since that's where all the fun stuff is. You can watch it on Hulu if you have a subscription to Hulu in the US, or you can rent it from iTunes. You can rent it from Amazon Prime, it seems, YouTube. But if you want it for free, go download Hulu, go get a free trial, or go log in if you already have one. And then Dino, if you know if it's available for you around you anywhere in particular.
As far as Germany, so I have the Blu-ray, but it is available on Amazon Prime Video.
Okay.
For renting or buying, but also there's like a Filmtastic channel.
Okay.
That you can just choose
get a free trial or something.
Exactly, like $4 a month, but you can also do a 7-day free trial. So
perfect.
If you haven't seen it, if you live in Germany or the US, you know where to find it, then definitely check it out so you can just listen along to our discussion next time.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's about a wrap on today's episode. Dino, as always, it is a pleasure getting to talk with you, especially getting to talk about movies. So I'm glad we finally got to watch the 400 Blows and discuss it together. And dude, I'm super excited to watch Hacksaw Ridge. I cannot lie. I might even throw that thing on tonight.
Let's go. Nice.
I can't lie.
I can't wait to rewatch it. And it's been a great episode. Fantastic movie. And I think I liked our discussion a lot. And like I said, I can't wait to discuss this next one.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to everyone who listened. Again, if you've made it this far, we really do appreciate it. And if you guys do maybe have a suggestion, maybe we can figure out something for them to maybe send some in, and maybe on a special occasion we can pick something that someone else suggests and go from there. We'll figure that out. Maybe by the next episode we'll have that figured out.
But that's a good idea, just to get like different movies that maybe we both haven't seen.
Exactly. So So just be on the lookout for that. We'll have all that coming to you guys soon. But Dino, until next time, it was good talking to you, buddy. And
Great talking
can't wait
to
to
you.
watch Hacksaw Ridge. Let's do it.
Nice.
All right. See you, man.
Bye bye.